So yeah, Eric, it's on Facebook now. So I'm going to give it a few more minutes. And let's see. Cynthia, if you have your hand raised for a specific reason, just go ahead and put it in the chat. Cindy from Fountain Hills. I just heard a thing about Fountain Hills and their school board meetings, which I could, now I want my name to be a planet. Yes, for sure, Ian. Yeah, I just heard a thing about Fountain Hills school board meeting and how like there's actually some really sane Republicans on their school board, but like the insane Republicans are trying to like take over the good work that they're doing in Fountain Hills. So, oy, oy, oy. Never a dull moment.
Yeah.
The Christian nationalists don't seem to take any breaks, guys. I don't even know how they do it. It's pretty gross. And in fact, today I just learned that, and I'm going to just go ahead and get on my soapbox for a hot second here, because as y'all know, we've been doing some school board support. You know, that's where we're really seeing the Christian nationalists kind of take hold. And so lather us up. So Peoria Unified School District, we had some really great news. One of the Christian nationalists, also a homeschooling mother, who encouraged people to take their kids out of the public school system and take advantage of the voucher system. She decided to resign. Her next meeting, her last meeting will be this Thursday. That's great news. But what I've been hearing is that the school employee that they targeted has now been coming out to their car to a vehicle that's been vandalized. Vandalized, yeah. And today apparently it escalated to slash tires.
Oh no.
And all I can think is there ain't no hate like Christian love, right? Like these folks who come up every single board meeting and announce that they are followers of Christ are doing things. And I certainly hope that the Peoria Unified School District has cameras in their parking lot so that those folks who are terrorizing this, you know, particular employee get their just desserts. Sorry.
So some interesting backstory, just maybe if people aren't aware. So I don't know how many people are familiar with ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council. So because ALEC was so successful at the state level, you started to see cities, which typically are kind of more progressive urban cores, right? Like picking up the slack and, you know, making their own sustainability plans and doing all these different things for the people who wanted them, basically. And so ALEC created this kind of little brother organization some years ago called ACE. And I don't remember what that acronym stands for, but it was set up to hyper focus on local level, like so city council, school boards. And so what we're seeing now is basically, you know, the effect of them starting to organize hyper local to kind of push that agenda, which is often, you know, anti-sustainability, anti-LGBTQ, all those things. So just some interesting off-topic background, because I've also kind of tracked that stuff for many years.
It's not even off topic, and you know, in these days
it's all tied together. It really is.
Everything is tied together. Yeah. Seems super topicy. Yes, thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read my little script, and then we're going to dig right into it. So for those of you who are here today, like I said, feel free to introduce yourselves if you have questions, because Stacey Champion, first of all, has the coolest name. Also, our
lot to live up to.
our board president his name is RT Justice. So like I feel like the two of you need to get together and form like a, I don't know, like a business, something like, you know, Champion Justice Industries. I don't know. There's definitely something there. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me get to it. All right. So hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. As you all know, we are a nonprofit organization focused on protecting the Constitution, the separation of church and state, now for over a decade. As always, we have the best speakers come and speak to us every Friday at noon. Thanks to those of you who take your lunch hour to listen to these really thoughtful, insightful, and informing conversations. Next Friday, we're actually going to be speaking with special guest Stephen Matheson about what it's like to be a humanist chaplain. So doesn't that sound interesting? You know, like they're not beholden to any particular sect of Christianity or any other religion. They are an actual humanist chaplain. So that sounds really interesting to me. And then we're going to continue to talk about our unhoused neighbors the following Friday at a very special time. I think it's at 7 p.m. Phoenix time, whatever that is, because I don't pay attention to all the other time zones. So make sure you're aware that in 2 weeks, our Friday discussion is going to be in the evening. But this is somebody who's really focused on the secular aspects of, or the secular approaches to how we treat our unhoused neighbors. And then also, I want to put a call out. Is there a topic that you'd like to discuss? Please share your thoughts on the chat or on our Facebook. Because, you know, I've really enjoyed these thematic conversations, thinking about maybe doing one on climate change, since our friends on the other side believe that climate change is all part of God's plan. So whatever you think we should talk about, put it in the chat and we can see if there's something that we can get behind there. Let's see, if you're interested in getting more involved with our organization, we're looking for volunteers to help with our school board and support initiative. If you came here early, you know that even when we managed to accomplish some of our goals in the realm of school boards, there's still so-called, Christians out there who will, take the lower road. So we need all your help. Or if you're interested in joining our board of directors, we have a couple of vacancies coming up. And of course, we always need your financial support to do the work that we do. But I'd like to encourage you all this week to consider donating to groups like, Arizona Atheists Helping the Homeless, or I'm sure, and Stacey's going to talk to us about how you can help her cause as well. But first, let me go ahead and introduce her. Stacey Champion, greatest name ever, is the owner of Champion PR and Consulting, which has served clients locally and nationally since 2010. Champion is a well-known community and consumer advocate who has called Arizona home for 25 years. She has written for the Phoenix New Times, Arizona Mirror, and other publications. Her activism centers around sustainability, environmental justice, unsheltered rights, heat-based public health threats, pedestrian cyclist safety, huge issue here in Phoenix. We can talk about that more. Utility monopoly, corruption, and reproductive rights. I mean, this is a big resume we're talking about. Her many love projects have helped to stop regulated utilities from disconnecting power in dangerous summer temps, save trees, and much more. A self-described mama bear, and not hopefully in a Sarah Palin way. For her 2 children in the world, Champion uses her skills and knowledge to fearlessly stand up for the rights of the most vulnerable residents whenever given the opportunity. Oh my gosh, I just got chills reading that last line, because when I made the decision to run for county superintendent back in 2020, I actually consulted with the then sitting Republican county superintendent, Don Covey, and he said, and I asked him, what piece of advice would you give somebody like me? And he said, lead with your most vulnerable students in mind. And so here we are, and this is the work that you do every day. So I am just going to turn it right over to you, because I can't wait for you to drop some knowledge.
So thank you, and thanks for having me. And I didn't do any kind of a presentation, because I find that we gain more from having discussions versus me just kind of talking at people. Also want to give a shout out to, I typically don't do candidate campaign work, but broke my self-imposed rule to help Chris Mays, our fierce and fabulous Attorney General, get elected. And so just want to give her a shout out for being somebody who has continued to just blow me away. And that woman walks her talk every day. And if we had more of that, I think we'd be in a different space, because part of my frustration with city, county, state is their lack of willingness to admit what is broken in an honest and transparent manner, so we can fix stuff. If they're constantly trying to hide things or, minimize the severity of things, like, we're not going to get anywhere. And so I have tracked the heat deaths, especially in Maricopa County, for, gosh, a long time now. All of my love projects center around trying to keep people alive. They're all interwoven, they're all connected. Many of them, center around, just poverty and inequity and environmental justice. And, I keep saying over and over to the media, if we saw the number of deaths, say in Paradise Valley, in a given summer, I guarantee you that every politician in the state would be freaking out. So just to kind of talk about some recent data, especially with regard to our unsheltered folks, and also to, like, I'm cool, like, if anybody wants to drop anything in the chat, I have it open and can kind of monitor it too. But so I have a bunch of ongoing public records requests. I probably pull more public records requests than a lot of the journalists I know. And over the years, I have, like, really pushed and challenged them and made arguments to get more information, more data. I believe that the more details that we have about these things, the better the solutions can be to wrap around them. And so I've, like, really pushed.
Can you maybe just back up just a second, like,
Sure.
and tell us, like, how, like, this became your life's work? Because you have a really incredible resume and you've done so many different things, but, like, what is it that made this at this stage in your life, like, this is the thing that I'm going to focus on?
Well, so the entire 25 years that I've lived here, so I've had this company that I have now since, like, 2010. So for about 10 years prior to that, I actually owned an environmental consulting firm. My area of expertise was indoor air and environmental quality, but it was also, like, the very beginning of kind of the green building movement. And so, I have been working on climate and sustainability issues basically my entire adult life and the whole time I've lived in Arizona. And so I've been in Phoenix for just over 15 of those years. I was up in northern Arizona for part of it. But for me, it's connecting the dots to the human face of climate change. And I always tell people, I don't really care if you believe aliens in sequin suits caused it. I'm over having those arguments with people. And so I try to focus on the things that people can see, right? And heat deaths are one of those things. And I really kind of delved into the indoor heat death component of it when I took on APS, our state's largest multi-billion-dollar Darth Vader utility monopoly, several years ago, 2018-ish. So it's been a while. Over one of their unjust and unjustified, in my opinion, rate hikes. And so at that time, I really started deep diving into, like, energy bill burden and shut off data and the rules or lack thereof that were in place, which is what prompted the disconnect rules that we do have today. They're not perfect. We still need statewide legislation really badly, because a lot of people don't know that SRP is not regulated by the Arizona Corporation Commission. And so SRP does not have to follow the ACC's disconnect rules. And so they've kind of made up their own rules. And it's actually what all of the utilities used to do prior to the disconnect rules, which is they only don't turn off on extreme heat warning days. The problem with that, especially in Arizona, is that, as an example, last year, when we had 425 heat deaths just in Maricopa County alone, there were only 17 days that the National Weather Service issued extreme heat warnings. So there were only 17 days last year where SRP wasn't turning people's power off. So we still do need statewide legislation. So anytime anyone wants to sidebar on that, I actually wrote a bill several years ago. It never made it onto committee to be heard, and I would tweak it a little bit knowing what I know now, but there is language for a bill. But so I just want to talk about some of this data. So I have all these ongoing records requests, mainly from the Maricopa Medical Examiner's Office. A lot of the other counties it's like pulling teeth getting data from them. It drives me nuts.
Wait, I'm curious, including like Pima and Coconino, like
yeah, it's really, there's a lot of counties that it's hard, it's challenging. Like I've been trying to get stuff from Mojave County, and I mean it's like pulling teeth, tied to heat deaths, and it's like pulling teeth. Because though the other thing too to know about the utility disconnect regs is that a bunch of the co-ops who are regulated by Corporation Commission, they weaseled out of the disconnect rules. So mainly it's UNS, TEP, and APS who chose this date-based model. So until October 15th, they cannot turn people off. I'm just seeing if anybody is
until when? October 15th?
October 15th. Yeah.
Okay.
So yesterday I just got a new batch of these ongoing records requests that I get. So one of them is their words, not mine, the transient death report, which is our unsheltered folks. And then I get the heat death reports. And so, and it is just, I mean, crushing. And these are, so the unsheltered death report, it's not just heat. So you'll see crossover with these reports, but it could be homicides, suicides, all number of ways in which people die. But from January 1 to July 23 of this year, so year to date through kind of the end of July, there have been at least 917 unsheltered deaths. Just in Maricopa County. Yeah. And then, as I said last year, switching kind of back to the heat deaths, and heat deaths, part of why this is like such a huge issue for me is that these are preventable deaths. Heat deaths are preventable deaths, whether it's outside, whether it's inside. These are totally preventable deaths. And so, like I said, we had 425 heat deaths last year in Maricopa County. We're going to crush that record, unfortunately, this year. As of August 12th, and again, this is just in the county. As of August 12th, we already have 89 confirmed heat deaths with 349 under investigation. And like, just to give you an idea of how many there are, I'm typically getting reports for the last year when people start dying again in the new year. And I really believe that this is finally this year. We've seen more good press and media attention on this in the right way than I've ever seen before. And I mean, for somebody who has been like shouting from the rooftops for so long, I found this poster for this event that I did like 10 years ago, all about it was called Act on Climate, and it was connecting the dots for, kind of like the human face of climate change. And back then, the only way I could get press on these issues was with like a big, crazy visual things. And Sheila, who's on, like Sheila probably has been to and remembers a lot of these things. But so for this event, I got 150 red umbrellas with the hashtag Act on Climate, and had the press conference downtown, and had folks hold all these umbrellas, and so it was a sea of red umbrellas as the backdrop. And I would have to do those things to get any coverage at all on these issues. And so going from then to now, I mean, is really heartening to me, because it's going to help create change. Nicole Gregg with ABC 15 just did this great story on cooling centers yesterday. And if anybody doesn't follow, most of my grumbly stuff is on Twitter. I can't call it whatever the stupid X thing, Twitter, it's Twitter. But so I'm constantly doing most of my griping and threads and stuff on Twitter. At some point I need to actually just reset up a blog, but whatever, life moves fast. But so does anybody have any questions so far?
Well, I have a question, first, and there is a question there, but so you said that you're getting more press on this. And my question is, do you think it's because we have so many amazing freshman legislators in there who had, before they got elected, been doing this kind of work, who have been really using their platform? Because this is my theory. That's what I'm
I think
seeing.
it helps.
I'm thinking of Annalise Ortiz,
Yeah.
Ana Hernandez, who showed up at the Phoenix City Council meeting and was
Nina has been amazing for years. Yes.
Yeah.
It helps tremendously. The more people who talk about it, the better. The more it's going to keep putting pressure on the powers that be. Part of the thing too is a lot of these. So I've done for years meetings to have meetings and all these workshops, and in cities and counties and universities, and it's meetings to have meetings and meetings to have meetings, and oftentimes they don't start planning until people are already dying. And it tends to be, in my experience, kind of being a very outspoken person in the city for the past 15 years, they tend to be extremely reactive versus proactive. So the press helps, right? I always tell people in community organizing who are learning, and I'm happy to always mentor people because I'm getting tired. Next round, let's go. And so you kind of you have to educate people as to what the issues are, right? You have to inspire people to care. You have to break things down into really easy to understand ideas. And then you have to use kind of grassroots, people-based organizing, and grass tops. Find those people up at the top, and you kind of squish them in the middle, and you spin press around the outside of it. And that is, in my experience, as somebody who has been able to get things done. And I will also very clearly state and say it all the time. I try to use my middle-aged white mom privilege for good, because there's a lot of stuff that I can do and say as a middle-aged white lady that I know a lot of other people can't get away with. And I take advantage of that for good.
Yeah. And all of the white ladies who are listening, we should all be doing the same thing.
Keep deaths.
Yeah, I'm trying. Okay, so let me go back. Let's go back to the first question. The first question that is coming from Sean. He says, great information. I'd love to share this data with several of the organizations I serve. Can you direct me to every
so I can access and then share this info. So the easiest way to do that is if you just reach out to the Maricopa MEO, so the medical examiner's office, and you can ask for like their preliminary, right? The preliminary heat death report. There's, like I said, the transient, their words, not mine, death report, and then tied to the pedestrian cyclist fatality one, like the Vision Zero stuff. I recently just had them make a new report for that too, which they hadn't done, which was really surprising to me that the city of Phoenix had not gone to them and asked them for this data. And so they hadn't, I confirmed it. And so they've done one of those reports to me so far as well, and told me that they can give them to me quarterly. And so it's public record, so anybody can go get it. Because the other thing too is like a large number of our unsheltered folks are getting hit and left for dead in the streets. Like there's a lot of hit and runs with unsheltered folks, unfortunately. So,
Ugh.
Do we have any more? I'm trying to look.
Well, I mean, Ian is asking that Annalise.
Oh, yeah.
He's
Yeah.
everything.
People dying.
Yeah.
And then
also says, gonna need to challenge my fellow Mayo colored pasty dudes to use their privilege for this sort of good too, please and thanks. Indeed.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll say too, like, there's a lot that I do. It's not always me front and center. I mean, because I have a PR firm, like a comms firm, and have relationships with journalists, like I'm an easy person for them to call, but there's, 1,000 things I'm doing behind the scenes and propping up other people and getting other voices out there, and that have my fingerprints on them possibly, but my name not attached. So I'm always kind of doing other stuff too to get other people elevated and out there. And
so can you help maybe like also paint a picture real quick of, what it is like? I mean, because honestly, we're all so freaking privileged here. The fact that we're here on noon in our air-conditioned domicile, right? To be able to participate in this, activity where we all stroke each other's egos and say, yay, we're so great because we care about all this stuff. Like, but let's really talk about what the day-to-day is like for somebody who is living in the zone. And I'd also like to know, because there have been all of these reports on what is actually happening in the zone. Has it been, have people been moved? Like, so give us a picture of what it's like to be down there, or to be down there as somebody who's assisting folks who are unhoused. And then about like all the stuff that's been going on with like the old station and those other businesses that are down there that are like, and I can kind of see both sides, right? Like, so tell us a little bit about that whole situation.
So, I mean, so I've been doing like volunteer street outreach down there for 15 years, like the whole time I've lived in Phoenix. And, I mean, I was sending my councilwoman photos of 12th Ave and Madison from 2016. There were no tents. Okay. In 2016, there were no tents down there. There were people. At that time, I could bring stuff down there and put something in every single person's hand. In 2016. And I sent her those pictures and I said, what year did you get elected? And she said 2014. It kind of went over her head. My point being, like, in 2016, we had no tents down there, right? And if you look at that time frame, what happened right after that, that was the year that the rents started jumping up. And just maybe also for some understanding of why I am passionate about this stuff. I grew up pretty poor with a single mom. I grew up like, we lived in Minneapolis, like a block from the projects. We didn't have a car. Instead of the heat, it was the cold. Our utilities regularly got shut off. We would get evicted. There were times where we were unsheltered or living in a motel. My mom made bad choices. We had domestic violence issues. So and then when the economy tanked, I am a single mom myself and was in a position where I had everything stacking on top of each other while I was trying to start this company that I have now. Actually, I was working a couple of waitressing jobs and rolling my change to buy groceries. And, like my transmission went out on my car. And so I was taking my kids to school, like on the back of my bike. And, so it's like, I have also experience that helps me be understanding and empathetic and want to help people without judgment, because quite honestly, everybody has a story and most people are one catastrophic event away from being unsheltered. And that's just the reality. I mean, my rent in the past several years has gone up like $1,000 a month. And when you're a single mom, that is insane. So that's just some background. So people have, I think, an understanding of where I'm coming from. Like, I did not grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth at all.
And I mean, I remember it was back in 2022 and it was warm outside and I don't even remember, I was running an errand and I saw like a couple who had two vehicles, one was like a sedan, the other one was like a hatchback, like kind of wagon type of thing, like maybe a Subaru. And you could just tell that everything that they owned was in those two vehicles. And this is a couple who's probably in their 50s or 60s and who were clearly stressed, but trying to be loving with each other. And all I could think was, this is new to them. Like, they've just lost their house. Like, and again, like my mind just goes to like,
and
okay.
I know those people when I see them.
Yep.
And so it's hard, right? It's like there is every kind of person and situation that you can imagine. What I can tell you that is the most heartbreaking is that I would say over especially the past 5 years, there are more and more older people. Lots of older folks who are just getting straight up priced out of their housing, especially older women. So if you think about it, they did not make as much money. Their Social Security is not as much, for a lot of them, it's like $1,000, $1,100 a month, and they're getting priced out of their housing, and it is crushing. And so I have really tried to help a lot of the senior, kind of the older women, and kind of bully them into getting housing a lot of times. But I mean, there's everything. Of course, there is the general, public perception of, oh, everybody's on drugs or everybody has mental health issues. And that's just not accurate. And the other really kind of sad thing with some of the younger folks is that you have, kids getting aged out of foster care and things. And I think there are a lot of younger people who go into that situation without an addiction issue when they get there.
Yes.
And a lot of people, and if I'm being honest, I would want to numb out in that position. And so what came first in a lot of these situations, I mean, we also do have, an opioid and huge fentanyl issue, which is a whole separate thing. And you do have mental health issues, because when people don't have stability, they're not going to be seeing a doctor. They're not going to probably even have easy access to get their meds if they do take meds. So we definitely need more low barrier shelter situations. And I mean, I don't know, it's just kind of a shit show. You have the, Department of Justice investigation going on. I can say that I have met with them. I have been down in the zone with the DOJ, a DOJ investigator, have given them, because I've documented things for many years. So I've given them a ton of information. I personally know so many people have had all their things thrown away multiple times, some of them. And so you have that kind of still going on. You have these kind of conflicting lawsuits happening, right? You have the businesses, but then you also have the ACLU. So then you have the city, again, just being like very reactive versus proactive in knowing that they're supposed to like clear the area, but people are just getting shuffled around in large part. I'll give you an example. There's this older woman. She's not quite Social Security. She's like 60. She has a little dog. Last November, I helped get her into the Washington Street shelter. Okay, November. She, as of last week, still didn't even have a housing plan. Okay, in July, she got really frustrated because they started pumping a bunch of people from the zone into that shelter, and something happened that caused her to not feel safe. And so then she left in July, ended up kind of like couch surfing with some older gay friends where she felt safe, but then, just got in touch with me last week, and she was like, I have to be out where I am. I don't know what to do. And I was like, why don't you have any of these things in place after being in shelter, right? This is an older woman, never been in jail, doesn't have an addiction issue. These older women, it has taken me over a year to get many of them into housing. If it takes that long, there was a 75-year-old woman. It took me over a year to get her into stable, affordable housing. If it takes that long for like the most vulnerable person you can even think of, what the hell, right? And I mean, so the other thing too is like, just in July, I don't know if you guys saw, there were more than 7,000 evictions in Maricopa County. Like, that's not only is that not sustainable in any way, but it is so much less expensive from a society perspective to keep somebody housed than to let them end up homeless.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable to me. In my opinion, we massively need rent control.
Yes.
And we need to be more holistic in our approach, and look at somebody as a whole human being.
Can we talk to a little bit? And I know there's like a few questions here that I want to, but can we talk to about the importance then of like these seemingly benign races, right? Like constable. What I've noticed in the more central areas of Maricopa County is that I'm seeing a lot more women constables, right? And this is important because a lot of people don't realize that you're the constable that's on your ballot that you vote for. They are the ones who are tasked with handing out these. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things they do, but eviction notices is one of them. And so there is such a thing as being able to try to like work with the landlord and be more compassionate about the eviction process, and maybe even trying to help facilitate from, one degree to another, like, oh, well, maybe we can get you, some temporary housing funding, or maybe we can negotiate with the landlord. So if you would speak to that a little bit, the difference that happens in a district where there is a more compassionate constable.
Well, I mean, I think a couple of things, right? Like if you look at some more creative things they're doing, like veterans court, like, where it has that more kind of holistic, like where it's not just where you don't immediately go to like out on the street, right? We have really landlord friendly landlord tenant laws in the state. That's part of the problem, right? This is a very, very landlord developer friendly state in general. But so just even leveling the playing field and providing legal services to those facing evictions. And I know there's some of that, but if you leveled the playing field in that way, I think that could make a huge difference. But like more than 7,000 evictions in the hottest month ever is absolutely insane. And so that also should tie into, as the city and county and state someday, hopefully soon, actually really starts working on this heat issue, the heat death issue, especially, and even heat illness. I mean, it costs the amount of money associated with heat illness and heat death. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars, right? In the grand scheme of things, like if you look at all the pieces of it, it's billions with a B of dollars. So if we could start, looking at also a potential eviction moratorium in our hottest months, I think that totally makes sense too, because you should not, this is a public health crisis. And as much as a lot of the politicians would like to downplay it, talk about all the things we're doing, these numbers don't lie. Like right. The massive number of people dying, and this is just what's reported, right? So and deaths are always an undercount also.
Always. And I think it was the New York Times or Washington Post that put out some article at the beginning of the summer this year, like, hey, we plug the numbers and, we see that if there's a massive power outage, which is a very real possibility here in Maricopa County, where our system, our grid, because of the Colorado River and all these things just completely shuts down, it will be a catastrophe. And everybody just seems to be like, just with climate change in general, I feel like there's this ostrich mentality, like, ugh. And I mean, I kind of get it, because every single day the current events and the news brings a new fresh hellscape for us to contemplate, and climate change,
gloom. It's
so hard, but at the same time, what will we do when that happens?
And I keep asking that question too, because it's not even a matter of if COVID taught us anything, it is that we are woefully unprepared to deal with a lot of things, right? I mean, look at all the things that broke and fell apart, because we already have so many things that are broken, but there's so much low-hanging fruit at the same time. But so if this state and the governor and everybody else is really serious about preventing preventable deaths, don't allow over 7,000 people to be evicted in the hottest month. So there's just some very common sense things, in my opinion. I don't want to miss some of these
Yeah,
questions.
okay. So Shantae says, I work with marginalized groups, specifically LGBTQ, unhoused, and African American girls and women. Oh, and she's asking, am I able to chat with you to discuss having you speak to at one of our events? So if you want to go ahead and throw your
Yeah,
contact.
here, I'll put my email in here for you guys. Oops, sorry, that didn't work. That's not
Okay.
it.
And then Jennifer Hillsbos, who is, you're the first, okay, oh, good. She put it in there. I was like, I know this person. First vice chair from Pinal County Democratic Party with their own fair share of controversy and drama, not with you, but with the Republican Party there. Worried about our housing insecure in Pinal too, and all these other counties. Yes. So if you want to get in touch with Debbie or with Jennifer, she's good people. Let's see. Oh, that was for Debbie. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm lost now. Okay, let me
That's
get.
okay. I put my email in there. Anybody, and like, here, I'll put my Twitter handle too.
Oh, do, because her Twitter handle is pretty great and she gets targeted by the right wing all the time.
Yeah,
In fact, I think you've been targeted even more like doxed kind of stuff. Like they've been very unkind to you. Shocking. I know that all these Christians are super.
Oh, me? To be honest with you, I mostly tell them to like suck a cactus and then I block them.
Suck a cactus. I like that. If I were still a middle school teacher, that is what I would tell my students to do rather than the other thing that they would tell me to, whatever.
Oh, hold on. I have to make it. Sorry, you guys. I just forgot. I need to do it to everyone. Sorry.
Oh yeah, do that. Make sure it's not just hosts and panelists. And then Rivko, who is an Arizona treasure, is asking Sheila, I guess, Sheila Kruger, who is with Arizona Atheists Combating Homelessness. And I know I got that name wrong. She says, how can I access this data when it's collected? It's a great idea. I'm so glad it is happening. And then Mars from Earth is asking, can you talk about mutual aid versus charity?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of really good mutual aid stuff going on. And in fact, I will say, here, let me see if I have it. So I have spent so many years boots on the ground out there in the summer, and last summer, I don't know, so heat is cumulative on your body. And I was down there, I was down there a ton, every year. I've been down there like a ton. And last year, I don't know if it's, my age and menopause or if like having COVID, like the whole, like whatever. I messed myself up last year. I was down there on like the first record breaking day, and almost passed out. And it messed me up. And so I have not been as out there this summer, out on the street. I've been down there. It's insane to me. Cause like, if you're out there for even like 4 hours, you're just like, how are there not more deaths than there are? Right. Like, I've had the backs of my calves burned, not from the sun, but from the heat radiating off of the asphalt, which gets to be like 165 plus degrees. It is intense. So last summer, because I had some kind of close calls, it kind of freaked me out. And it messed me up. So I've been much more careful because I can't help anybody if I keel over dead and don't really want to become a statistic of that, which I've studied for so many years. So I've been much more careful. But to the mutual aid point, I'm trying to find their Venmo. I have friends who've been passing out. It's Unsheltered Phoenix is her Instagram. For those who don't follow it. Let me just make sure that's right. But so on any 110-degree day, they've been passing out like 2 pallets. I bought them a pallet of ice, I don't know, a week or 2 ago. It's like $280 for a pallet of ice. But so in my opinion, like those doing that kind of work are the lifesavers. And not to say that there aren't organizations doing great work. Ironically, as somebody who is not religious, I love Andre House. And I love Andre House because they give with love. Like they, to me, embody the behavior of what I believe religion was probably intended to be, right? And so I give Andre House a lot of props because they're like, they just love people up. They're feeding people, people go there for showers, they help people. But I know that they're still, like, we have these storms coming in right now. There's always a need for tarps. There's always a need for like ice right now. So on Instagram, so it's leftover. Here, let me type that.
Yeah, if you can share that. In the meantime, if it's okay, if I can break in here, Rivko is saying, so what can we on this virtual meeting do regarding the eviction issue? I got so upset when I read the article you mentioned that I wrote a letter to the editor saying, stop the bleeding, which of course did not get published. I know the longer term issue is electing different people, but right now in this moment, like what do you recommend, Stacey?
Oh, I mean, it's such, so this is one of those issues that it's so big, it's so complex, like until we have a new legislature, obviously we're not going to see anything positive happen there, which is why, like me personally, I like community organizing where, you know, like I think if we did a better job just even helping those around us. So like if you hear of somebody in your neighborhood who's about to get evicted, like I've helped stop folks from getting evicted, whether that's crowdfunding money for them or getting them kind of like some legal advice help or, you know, connecting them to resources. So
Even for those of us who are politically connected, right? Like if we happen to know our local constable, we could probably reach out to them and say, hey, can you help facilitate a more compassionate way to do this or something? I don't know, but
like, I don't like feeling powerless, which is why, like, I'll just be like, screw it. Like, I'm just gonna, you know, like, I'm just gonna do this and then figure it out. So I wish I had a better, I mean, there are some organizations and groups, so surely they always could use volunteers, I'm guessing. I mean, I would go that direction, but I think part of the problem with a lot of these issues, because they're so big and they're so complex, if you can even just take like a little piece of it and be like, okay, well, I know that I can do this, because when we feel like something is too big, we feel very powerless. And so I think the goal is to just find the little piece that helps you feel like you're doing something positive to move the needle. And if that's helping like a specific person, I mean, those are good things, right? Like you know, when you can help somebody not get evicted, like there was just actually Nicole Gregg did a story. There was an older woman who lived in subsidized housing, kind of on the south side, and she had a leak in her apartment. And this is like my old area of expertise, right? Like she had mold from it, and she was standing up for herself, and she's like, you're not fixing this right, and it's making me sick. And because she advocated for herself, they were trying to not renew her lease and push her out. And it's, you know, low income senior housing. And so I got a call from an advocate who's like my Southside soul sister who called me. And so then we got Nicole did a story. We told Nicole about it. And we all collectively were, you know, pushing, making calls, calling the property management company. There were stories in the media. Nobody likes that. And they let, and she's still in that apartment. So, I mean, I think the moral of this story is that it is absolutely possible to make positive change, even as one person, as long as you are tenacious and, you know, willing to rock the boat when it's needed a little bit. And, you know, and when your heart is in the right place and you're authentic in what you're doing, I feel like not only will people come around you to help you, but the universe conspires to help you. And as hokey as that sounds, like, I'm 52 years old and it's worked so far for me. So,
Well, and I mean, like, I think too that, you know, just one of the things that I hoped to accomplish when we decided to have this kind of thematic study, if you will, about, you know, what contributes to homelessness and what the secular response is like, you know, we remember each other's humanity. Every time, you know, every time, because I am in, I guess, what you could call sunny slope light. I don't know. I'm still in the slope and I love it. And, you know, we have a lot of folks in this area who find themselves unhoused or in some kind of dire straits or whatever. And I try to remember that they're a human being just like me. They're not some, you know, monster out of a play or a movie or something like that. Like they just, I immediately find myself thinking about, like, they were born, you know, somebody wanted that child at some point, you know.
Everyone has a story, and I think like everyone can just practice kindness throughout their day. And whether it's like, I mean, I buy somebody Gatorade or water almost every time I go into a convenience store, right? Like I keep stuff, the back of my car is always full of
The Circle K right down the street. Yeah, it absolutely.
like everyone has the ability.
Oh, wait, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Just as we're on that topic, because like, I know a lot of these, and I meant to ask it of Sheila, and then Sheila, if you want to put it in here too, I'd love, because I don't think that we actually asked you this question last week, but like, what do you think about like that initiative that some municipalities put forward where they're like, stop, don't feed the homeless, put your money, like, and sometimes they'll be like, don't do that, find another organization. And other times they might actually have like a parking meter where you can put money in. Now, what is I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And Sheila, if you'd like to chime in on that, I'd love to hear that too.
I mean, like, I think it depends on what you're comfortable with, right? Like I think if here's the deal, like if you're going to give somebody money, whether it's $1, $10, whatever, as long as you give that money with, again, like when it's gone, it's gone. As long as you don't care what somebody does with that money, because they might buy drugs with it, right? They might do something you don't agree with. I mean, that's we all have free will. Like personally, I keep stuff in my car all the time. So like I give people things. Like there are times when I'll bring somebody into a restaurant with me and like have them sit down and get their meal. And if a manager has an issue with it, like it's not for long, right? But so, I mean, I do things like that. But so everybody has a different comfort level. I mean, the other thing I'll say just in closing with the heat is that like we have got to do a better job checking in on people. And when you're traveling throughout your day, it is not safe for anybody to be sleeping on the ground or a bus bench when it's over 100 degrees usually. I mean, and they could be sick or dead. And we need to be better about asking if people are okay as we just travel throughout our day. Because there was a couple of weeks ago, it was on a Saturday. I was on 7th Street, kind of like maybe 7th Street and Maryland, up in that kind of neighborhood. And there was older man out of his wheelchair, older African-American man out of his wheelchair, no shoes on the ground.
I think I know exactly who you're talking about, because I'm close to that neighborhood a little bit.
And I pulled over and helped him and called some resources. But I mean, like, we're such a car-centric city too. Like, everybody just drive by, like, just like check on people, ask people if they're okay. If you see somebody that looks like, or an older person walking, carrying their groceries, and they don't look well, like, if you stop them and say, like, are you okay? You could potentially save that person's life.
That's a whole other thing too. Like, in a city that is so vehicle centric and with not the best kind of bus stops that are covered or whatever. I've actually done this before, especially living along 7th Street. And I know most of the people probably live, like, if I see somebody, especially I've done it before. You got a kid and you're like trying to get home with all these freaking groceries. I'm going to stop. I'm going to pull over, whatever. My mother would have a heart attack and say, you don't know about these people, but like, I know. And I know that as a single mother who used to rely on public transportation with my 2 children, one in a sling and one in a stroller, that I would have been incredibly grateful for somebody to pick me up and give me a ride. So I do that too. So well, let's see, because I want to make sure I honor everybody's time. Let's see. First of all, Sheila's up there. Rivco says, could we start a petition or have a rally at the executive tower asking the governor to issue an executive order to stop all evictions and work with existing groups to join in? Mars suggested Tempe YIMBY, which stands for Yes in My Backyard. They were just here a couple of weeks ago. I think that's great. Sheila shared Rivco County Health phone number and also says, I've always said that as long as people show up at our giveaways and need what we offer, that means they're not getting it somewhere else. Of course, a fully funded government program that solves all these problems is the ideal, but it's not happening.
Agree, 100%.
So,
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say, I'm really easy to find. I'm always willing to help as time allows. My schedule is a little wonky. Like, if you ever email me and I don't get back to you right away, like, email me again. But I'm Midwestern. I'm nice.
Where in the Midwest are you from?
Minnesota originally.
I'm from outside of Chicago. So yeah, we definitely have that kind, or neighborly.
Minnesota nice is a real thing.
But
well, I'm also feisty, so.
That's, what, if you grew up in a small town, Nebraska, that's where my mom's from, yeah. Sheila. Oh, Michigan. Yep. Yeah. No, like, yeah. And everybody would call my mom and tell her if I was like coming home after curfew. It was great. I loved it. But also, like, it's just another Friday to prove that you don't need God to be good, right? Like, we all have it within ourselves to be good and to be helpful and to be kind, especially when it comes to these hot summer months, and to help our unhoused neighbors. No matter how much Justine Wadsack is offended by the term unhoused neighbors, I'm going to continue to use it just to piss her off, because I get so sick and tired of the dehumanization. So Stacey Champion, you really are a freaking champion. And we're so grateful for you. And
no, thanks for having me. And I hope it was informative and people got something from my nerdy brain.
Well, I think it's your passion that sells it. Yeah. Stacey for every public office there is, says Sheila. And I couldn't agree with you
I
more.
love you, Sheila, but I would rather chew off my own arm.
Same. Let's leave it to the whippersnappers, girl. We're in our 50s. You know, we need
Yeah.
some millennials and Gen Zs up in here to run for office because we
Yeah.
are too old at our age. I mean,
Yeah, like
I'm having my-
like I have no poker face at this point.
oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for joining
Yeah,
us.
thank you for
Stacey.
having
I
me.
appreciate you. And y'all, you know, make sure you follow the lead and have maybe some bottles of water in your car and, you know, maybe even some gift cards or something kind that you can do to help our
Socks. People
neighbors.
always need socks. Socks are huge.
Oh, and what is it called? Hold on. Bomba socks. Sheila told me that you buy a pair of socks, you get another pair of socks for free. So, all right, everybody, have a great weekend. Thanks, Eric, for helping to facilitate, and I'll see y'all later. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.